All right, here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Sabrina Victoria. I am here with Her Talk Show. So excited to be here. We are talking about the healing energy of color. I am so excited about this. I have never heard of this before. So I'm so excited to dive into this. Get comfortable as we explore the triumphs and the challenges faced by women worldwide. We're going to be offering insights. We're going to be offering inspiration to fuel not only your personal, but also your professional growth. So let's jump right in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
We already have peeps joining live. Yes, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love in the comments. We are here every day delving deep into the realms of health, wealth, and leadership with some of the most brilliant women globally. We've interviewed over 600 women, and today we are adding another one to the list. We have Heather Eck. She is a multimedia abstract intuitive artist. Try saying that 10 times fast. She interprets people, places, and experiences through color, a condition called synesthesia. Say it for us.
Synesthesia.
Synesthesia. I will mind you, audience, I practiced that about 15 times before we went live. Synesthesia.
You got it.
Like an enormous box of crayons, her gift operates by categorizing through intricate but specific shades of color, enabling her to experience color. She responds to these encounters with people, things, emotions, and spaces by understanding the particular shade of experience that a person dwells in. Girl, this is so freaking cool.
Thank
It
you.
sounds like magic. When did you even figure this out?
It's been with me since I was a little kid, honestly. I just didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what synesthesia was until a couple of years ago.
I still don't know what it is. What is it?
Synesthesia is the condition where your senses get crossed in your brain. So if you listen to music, your brain might see it as color or shape or form. And there are about 4% of the population has something like synesthesia, but there's something like over 80 different forms of it. So you might have sound to color, you might have word to color, you might have word to shape, you might have days of the week. I mean, there are tons of different ways that people's brains sort of process the way that works.
I think I saw this on TikTok one time where they were asking people what the color of like feelings were.
Yeah.
So they were like, so that's what that was.
That's what that is. Yeah. A lot
So
of
they were
artists
like,
and
what
musicians.
color is sadness to you?
Yeah.
And then whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So 4%. Okay. So say that one more time. It is when what and what cross?
When your senses get crossed.
Senses get crossed with what?
They just kind of cross in your brain. So it's sort of like how you take in information and how your brain processes it. So for me, like if I'm listening to music, I see it in my mind's eye, sort of like a choreography or with different shapes and symbols and colors that sort of flash through my brain.
I do not have that.
That's okay.
I am not part of that 4%. So we can cross me off the list. But that means that this is going to be so much more exciting because I don't know anything about it. So I really like how you are comparing this to an enormous box of crayons.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't come up with that. My spiritual teacher came up with that. She kind of helped me sort of understand what was happening in and around me. And I was noticing that when I was seeing somebody's color, I would see the kind of the primary color that I associate with the chakra system. And that sort of tells me where somebody dwells in their body. But then I would see a different shade of it. So for example, if I'm wearing like a bright, vibrant green, that green supports the heart chakra. But if I see somebody who has pain in their heart, it might appear as like an army green or as like a soft pale sage green. So it's kind of like moving through these intricate but specific shades of color that I then associate back to the chakras.
Is it always the same or does it change or
For the
evolve?
person, it changes. It changes, especially because if they're doing work on healing that area a couple of months down the road or something, I might see something different for them. Or if they're sort of moving through different issues in their life and they're working on healing certain aspects, they might then move into a different space and start working on healing that energy too.
Wow. Okay, so what is the benefits of knowing this or working with this with somebody?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about it is that for a lot of people, when I do a portrait for them or I tell them what color I see, they sort of already know. It's like they have this intuitive sense about it already. They just haven't been able to verbalize it. Or I'll see somebody who's sort of dwelling in their throat and I'll say, there's something that you're working on communicating, or you've been stuck on trying to be able to express this idea or this truth or this something. And they're like, yes, okay, that makes total sense because I've been working on this. So it's almost like they already have a sense of what's happening within themselves. They just kind of need a little bit of guidance to go, yeah, okay, now I understand that a bit more. And now I feel like I've got some tools to be able to move forward and make some changes in my life.
Very interesting. So, by you being able to create it into almost a visual,
Mhm.
helps them to be able to then dissect it emotionally?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of times, I mentioned this the other day to somebody, we don't always see ourselves as the radiant spirit that we are. We're spirits having a human experience, and we can get so caught up in the day to day of just looking at ourselves in the mirror and going like, oh, I wish this, or I hope that, or whatever. And we kind of are not our biggest fans sometimes. And I feel like having a painting of your soul or a painting of your spirit that sort of reminds you of how beautiful you are and how effervescent and radiant you are is healing for somebody because they can look at that and go, wow, that's me. Look at how beautiful I am. And that painting, that portrait, the messages, the color, all sort of ministers to you, that every time you look at it, you're reminded of how wonderful you are and how deeply loved you are. So there's a lot of, I think, power in there, and there's a lot of healing in that too.
Wow. So when you're talking about healing, when you're talking about almost like a deeper understanding of who you are through color, how is this helping somebody in their everyday life? How is this helping somebody heal?
Mhm. There are times I think we're not aware of where color is showing up in our lives or supporting us. So for example, if I see somebody who's in deep grief, that color to me will show up as like a blue gray color. It's like a lower blue, it's like a lower level, not energy, but the vibration is lower. And so they might be spending a lot of time wearing gray or black or just sort of surrounding themselves with things that aren't necessarily uplifting but bringing them down or keeping them in that lower energy. And so if I am working with them, I'll say, okay, let's get a prescriptive color for you. Let's get a color that's going to help you heal. That might be orange or peach or something that's a bit more uplifting and inspiring and a bit more optimistic, that will sort of offer them, a reminder that there's still life, that there's still potential, that there's still possibility, and help to shift their energy in a different direction. We work with color all the time and we're not even aware of it. If you kind of look in your closet and see what colors are you attracted to, what colors do you have the most of, that color is communicating something to you, or it's telling you something about yourself that maybe you weren't even fully aware of.
I feel like most women would say black as my
Yeah,
screen is right now.
I
So
know.
so what would that mean? What it what's the difference between, "Hey, we're actually thinking in color,"
Mhm.
or black is just slimming,
Yeah.
or we can hide behind it, or, I
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, right? Like black is slimming, it's a naturally slimming color, but black is mysterious, it's sophisticated, it offers a sense of protection. And so if you find yourself wearing a lot of black, it's possible that you could be hiding some aspect of yourself, or you don't want to stand out, or you're trying just to kind of fall back into the shadows a little bit and not necessarily be as out in front versus somebody who might wear like a red or a yellow or an orange, something that's really bold and calls for attention, is looking for energy and excitement and, all the different kinds of like like a burst of color that makes you seen and makes you feel like you are out in the forefront of something. So there's nothing wrong with wearing black at all. But if you find that you're wearing it all the time, you might want to go, okay, what's happening around me? What am I maybe afraid of? Or what am I feeling like I want to step back away from? And you can kind of dig in a little bit to see what's really going on.
Love that. So you said, I want to write those three things down, even though it's not definitive. But you
Mhm.
said mysterious, sophisticated. Did you say protective?
And protective. Yep.
I totally feel that. Protective. Why
Yeah.
is that? Because we're kind of like,
It's kind of
eh,
shielding. It
yeah,
kind
it
of
is.
wraps you up. Yeah.
I don't think I ever would have thought that. But now that you're saying that 100%, I can see
Mhm.
how that would be. You also can't really be seen at night, so you're kinda, like, hidden.
You're kind of mysterious, you're kind of not really out in front. You're kind of taking I feel like that color to me pulls back, kind of has the energy of pulling back a bit.
Have you ever done a portrait before and it literally is all dark colors?
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't done nobody's energy has been black to me. I haven't experienced anyone like that, but I have experienced colors where they sort of dwell in more of the physical body. So those colors might be more red or a deeper burgundy or even brown, and that just shows me that somebody's really in their root chakra, working on their sense of stability, their sense of self. They might be working through financial issues or trying to feel more comfortable in their finances. So there's definitely color in there that will show me that somebody's in not like a lower vibration, but they're really working on understanding something about themselves as it relates to that color.
I'm really into true crime. If you were to sit down with a murderer,
Uh,
do you think there would be some color in that, or would it be black or, like,
that's a
dark?
great question. I've never thought about doing that. I do love a good true crime podcast. So I'll have to do one and see what comes up. I
That's
imagine
interesting though,
though.
because, like, they're not all bad. They just have
Mm,
this weird obsession. But,
mhm.
like, they're getting along in everyday life. People think that they're normal. A lot of times people will say they're very nice. So, in situations like that, would there be just like a black streak, but there would still be color?
I think there would still be color. I think there would be more of the darker shades of color that show me that energy center is out of balance for sure. That especially because I think when you're thinking about somebody in that crime space, they're definitely in a low level energy space. So I think everything's going to feel down to me. It's going to feel lower. It's going to feel more flat. It's not going to have that effervescence or like that gold or glittery, shimmery energy that I see from other people for sure.
That would be so interesting.
I'll have to check that out. I'll have to see what comes through for that. That's interesting. I've never done that
Yeah,
before.
you could be like a synesthesia true
Crime.
crime colorist.
I think they'd all be gray.
Girl.
Too
You'd be
funny,
selling out the gray blacks and dark blues.
right?
Um,
Totally.
I wanna talk a little bit about the brush strokes, right? Because 'Cause you're doing paintings.
Mhm.
So, what type of utensils? What type of does that make a difference between how a person is showing up depending on what size or what kind of utensils you're using to do your drawings?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I kind of do two sort of forms of art. I do my spirit portraits for somebody, which is where I'm reading their color and delivering messages to them. And I do that in alcohol ink on Yupo paper. So that in that way, I don't use any tools except for the ink and the alcohol. And I sort of let it do its thing and allow it to kind of tell me what it is. And when I'm working on that kind of painting, whatever happens from beginning to end, I feel like is part of the experience of the painting. So, for example, if I'm trying to do, like a couple of drops of purple, but the ink comes out, like a splatter, that to me is a message that there's something that's happening for that person where they're really trying to like have a breakthrough of some kind and figure out something about themselves. And when I'm doing regular paintings in the studio, as I'm kind of interpreting or thinking about or sort of processing artwork, and I use acrylic paints, I do think that there are different ways that that is sort of expressed through texture or through, for example, I just did a painting called My Cup Runneth Over, and it's done with heavy texture. And I made little clay bowls out of modeling clay and poured gold into the bowls and let it spill out all over the canvas. So that was a really beautiful, sort of like tangible way of seeing this idea of abundance, or seeing this idea of, you know, my cup runneth over, literally.
I love that. How little were they? Were they just like
They're
quarter size?
little cups. Yeah, some are about 2/4, some are little cups. Yeah,
Oh my gosh! And then is the canvas upright, like on a wall?
it is. Yeah, do you want me to grab it so you can see it?
Yes,
Okay, let me
yes.
grab it.
Oh, that is so fun. I'm like obsessed with gold. I've been obsessed with gold since before gold was back. I think it just looks good on me.
All right, can you hear me again?
Yes. Girl, this is so freaking cool.
Isn't that cool? So you can see them like on the canvas sideways. They're literally
Yes.
3D. So yeah, I get to really play a lot with like the texture, and kind of even there's a lot of heavy texture on there too. So it really does depend on what I'm sort of feeling, and what wants to come through. And with that one in particular, it wanted to be something that you could sort of feel and touch and sort of experience in a 3D sort of way.
Yes. Oh, that's so fun. And that was called The Cup Runneth Over.
My cup runneth over. Yeah, there's actually 2 of them. They're a little set too.
That is great. That is great. I love that. So, can you explain what alcohol ink is before we?
Yeah. Alcohol ink are these, they come in tiny bottles, or you can buy them in larger bottles too, but they're highly pigmented inks. And so when I work with those, I use alcohol that you buy at the drugstore. And you use the alcohol to help the ink sort of spread a little bit. And then I use a paper called Yupo paper, which is sort of a thick, almost plasticky paper. If you shake it, it makes like a plasticky sound. And the ink sort of glides across the surface of that. And so when you use color, or you use alcohol, or even gold ink, it just spreads. It's just kind of mesmerizing to look at. And then the result, there's an example behind me. The result is just this beautiful, shimmery, kind of lovely abstract portrait of your soul.
Wow. That sounds gorgeous.
They really are. I've yet to see one that wasn't just a beautiful representation of somebody's spirit. It's always really lovely to watch.
That's fabulous. So, I know that you said that this gift has been with you since you were little, but I do know that you were in corporate for a while.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk about that. I feel like there are so many individuals, men and women, who have gifts, and there's some uncertainty, there's some fear, there's some scarcity around, or people thinking you're crazy.
Uh-huh.
Around certain niches or certain gifts that people have been given. So I'd love for it to kind of hear your take. I mean, how was your journey going from corporate into the realm of, first of all, entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
and then second, healing energy of color?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I was a creative little kid. I was a spiritual kid. I was always into sort of the woo. So I don't think it was a surprise to anyone that I grew up to have some of that and carry that along with me. I was also a really creative kid too, and I was interested in art as a kid, and I minored in art in college. So I feel like, when you look back, hindsight's 2020, you sort of look back and you go, "Oh, some of those things were with me the whole time." I think, as you're in your teenage years, your college years, it was sort of the conversation of, well, do you think you're going to make any money doing art, or should you go do something different? And my dad and I kind of talked about what might I be good at. And he mentioned HR. And I was like, okay, HR, let's do that. And so I really just set about on the path of human resources, got my degree there, and then did corporate HR for over 20 years. And you get to that point in your life. I think everybody gets there or has been there where you kind of look at things and you go, I don't know that this is what I want anymore. This doesn't feel right to me, or this doesn't feel good to me. Or for me, it was my health isn't great. I'm tired, and I'm the kind of tired that no amount of time off or vacation is going to fix. And so working with my spiritual teacher, she and I kind of talked about, well, what were you like as a kid? Because your gifts show up when you're young. If you look back at your childhood, a lot of the things that you had curiosities or interests in kind of point towards your innate gifts. They just kind of do. I think because as kids, we're not burdened by this idea of an expectation of doing something. And so we just have these like natural curiosities about things. And so for me, that was art. And I kind of went back full circle back to art, and I started making art again. And I was doing really well in my career, and I was doing kind of well in my art. And then on the very same day, I got a solo art show, and I got a promotion. And it was almost like the universe was handing me two menus and saying, okay, which one do you want? And I had to decide.
Are you serious? On the same day?
The exact same day. It was really bizarre because I felt like, I was irritated. Number one, I was like, this is dumb. Why is this happening on the same day? Because then I felt like I wasn't sure what path to keep going on. But I knew that night when I laid down in bed, I was more excited about the art show. I was so stoked about it. And I was grateful for the promotion, but it didn't fill my cup. It didn't make me feel excited. It just made me feel more tired. And so what I've learned about that is I really have to pay attention to how something makes me feel. And I really have to kind of like pay attention to what's the sensation that my body gives me, where it tells me this makes me feel excited and expansive, or this makes me feel tight and restricted. And if it's tight and restricted, then I know that there's something there that doesn't feel 100% for me. And so I kind of decided at that moment that I would eventually leave corporate. And then as luck would have it, I went in to resign and had planned to say, I'll work out through the rest of the year. And my boss was like, okay, cool. Let's go tell your team. And then 2 weeks later, I was out. I was just in my studio full time. And so it was really not the plan that I had in place, but I feel like God, the universe, the way things worked out, they just kind of shoved me, and I took a flying leap and haven't really looked back since then.
Wow, that is so amazing. What a cool story. But also just really a testament to like not shutting down the dream. It was always there. Versus somebody who maybe thinks about it all the time, doesn't really have any action towards it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like your acceptance into the art show or the event or whatever, you had to do something.
Yeah.
You had to fill something out, or they didn't just like call you random out of the blue, just some obscure. Exactly.
Yeah.
So very cool.
Yeah, I think there's always, the idea of being able to attract or manifest something still requires action. And I feel like for me, even though I was still working full time in human resources, every day I tried to do something that supported the vision that I had for my artwork, whether it was getting up early to paint or posting on social media or applying for a show. It was like one little step each day of dipping my toe in the water so that I wasn't just letting go of that desire to have a totally different outcome in my life. And it wasn't easy, and it's still not easy. I'll say every day is filled with challenges that, as an entrepreneur or as somebody who's trying to do good in the world. But it's the decision that I'm most, I think, happy with in my life.
It's good. So when you're doing this, just for a visual, is someone like sitting in front of you? Are they laying in front of you? Like, how is somebody getting a color portrait?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just need a picture of somebody. And once I have that picture, I'll sit and meditate on their energy, and I'll do their portrait in the studio alone. And I'll write down the thoughts and impressions that are coming through. And then we'll meet on a Zoom and I'll show you your painting and I'll explain everything that was coming through while I was doing your portrait. So oftentimes it can be for someone who's living or deceased, or for a pet, or for really anything, as long as I can sort of tune into what their spirit is sort of showing me.
Mm. That's I'm just trying to, like, I'm just trying to, like, how did you, like, how I'm just trying to think, like, if I
Uh-huh.
had this, I wouldn't even know, like, how old were you when, I guess that's the question. How old were you when you were like, "Let me sit down and, like, do a color port," like, how did that even,
Yeah.
I'd
You know what?
never heard of this.
I know, it's kind of interesting. It's like this weird thing, this weird magical thing. I was probably late 30s. I think I was late 30s because I turned 40 in during the pandemic, and I had left in 2019. So I was 39. And I would say maybe 2 or 3 years before that, people were coming into my office at work and I would notice color around their heads, and I would notice the kinds of conversations we were having. It started to shift from me being like the HR gal to being like the woo gal in the office that people would come in and have conversations with about all kinds of things that they were interested in. And so my conversation shifted, my ability to see their colors shifted. And when I started working with paint and sort of, I would kind of get this instant sort of drop in of somebody's color, and I would go, "Oh, you're green, light green, and gold." And then I would do a painting for them. So that was probably about 5 years ago that that started, 5 or 6 years ago.
So just intuitively, you were like, "Let me do a painting of these colors that are coming to me through you,"
Yes.
and just for the heck of it.
Just for the heck of it, and then to kind of say, "Here's what I got. Does this make sense?" Or "Here's what I see. How does that resonate with you?" And then it started to kind of build out from there. And I'm so thankful for the people at the beginning who were so encouraging of me and so trusting of me. "Oh, paint me. What do you see?" They really made space for me to kind of play with the idea of it and go, "Okay, does this make sense for you? Let me do your brother. Does that make sense for him? Let me do this person." So it was kind of like me spreading my wings a little bit and saying, let's really play with this and see what's happening. And then it kind of evolved into, okay, now it's called a spirit portrait. Here's what I see. Here's what it's telling me. And I think just being able to connect with people who've had that experience with me, who come back and go, "I can't believe you said this about me, because it was spot on and I loved it. And I'm actually I had somebody who was working on a book, and she was really stuck at a certain area. And so we talked about that. And then a couple, weeks later, she's like, "I made so much progress on this. Thank you so much. You helped me move past this block, or you said this thing that opened up a pathway for me where now I'm able to move through it." And so things like that are so affirming and so inspiring that I keep thinking, okay, there's more I can do. There's more that I can contribute to the world.
Wow. So cool. Good for you.
Thanks.
When, we have a ton of people watching live right now, and I'm sure even more on the replay. Anyone who is looking for, I guess, looking to connect, like, who should be reaching out to you? Who do you help?
Yeah. I mostly help women, but I've done spirit portraits for men as well, who are kind of feeling like they're stuck a little bit, or they're in a place where they feel like they're on that treadmill of life. Very similar stories to my own, where I felt like I was the kind of tired that no amount of sleep was going to fix, and kind of trying to figure out what's next for me. And I think that they come to me because they're sort of at the beginning of some sort of spiritual journey, or they're at the beginning of trying to figure out what their next mountain is. And so it's a great place to kind of start with color, because colors, a language that we all speak in. It's a really gentle medium, and I want that conversation with somebody I want them to leave feeling like they've been held in a hammock the whole time, and that they
Mm.
leave feeling inspired and uplifted.
Wow, I can visualize that for sure. Well, that's great. Where do you hang out on social media? Where can people find you if they'd like to follow you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm on all the socials as at Heather Eck Artist. And on my website at heathereck.com/thank you, I have a bunch of freebies out there for folks that they can start to learn about color through, color and chakra guides. And I've got different workshops where people can come and learn about color and practice making art that's intended to be healing for them too. Some therapeutic art workshops too.
That's great. So Heather Eck Artist,
That's right.
Instagram, Facebook,
Insta, Facebook, TikTok,
TikTok.
YouTube. Yep.
Ooh, she's on TikTok. Okay, so Facebook, Insta, TikTok, Heather Eck Artist, and then website is heathereck.com. If you are watching this, in the description, the website that she said with the workshops is in the description below. So if you click the description below, you'll be able to see some of the stuff that she's offering, some of the events or workshops that she has going on. So make sure you click on that and see what she has in that arena. This has been fabulous.
Thank you. I love chatting with you. I could talk to you for another hour or two.
Yeah, so fun, so exciting. I took a ton of notes, very interesting. And I could see how valuable this would be to somebody. Like I'm just imagining, like if I think I was going to do one, I would want to do like a huge one, like a good sized one that could like go on my wall. It
Mhm.
would be interesting to have one where it was like me, my spouse, and my son, like a family almost.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own, and it's kind of like a bigger picture, kind of like a family portrait, but it's color. I think that would just be so interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So definitely opened my mind to some new things. This has been great. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up here?
Well, number one, thanks for having me on your wonderful show. I'd say to people, pay attention to what's in your closet. What color did you put on today? And maybe take a look and see, what does that color mean for you? What's it communicating?
Ooh.
You can play a lot with color and
I'm
see how
wearing
it
green just
impacts
like
you.
you're wearing green.
Yeah, we're wearing the heart colors, the love colors.
Yes. Green with gold, like the
Yeah,
girl you were talking about. I love that.
totally.
That's cool. Awesome. For those listening live, for those listening on the replay who made it all the way to the end here, thank you so much. Make sure that you connect with Heather Eck if she is resonating with you. She hangs out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And a clickable link for her website is in the description below. Make sure you click on that. We'd love to connect our guests to our audience. So that brings us to an end of yet another incredible episode of Her Talk Show. Thank you, Heather, for sharing your wisdom, inspiring us all. Remember to follow, like, and share. Once again, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm inviting you to join our amazing community, Her Nation, where we continue to uplift each other every step of the way. Until next time.